Hi there. Welcome to Last Man Standing. We just had a successful amateur hour on Stupid O'Clock without Joe Dog, without Lewis Lee, but we had special guest Carl Whitzman along with Bill and John and Josh. And let me say right here, we are pretty much brought to you by the Rising Tide Network, which is got something to offer you every day of the week. Sometimes daytime, sometimes nighttime, but the schedule is rather crowded. We need a couple of things for Monday night. We need a few things for well, definitely not Thursday because we've got that one pretty much filled up. But there's all kinds of things here. I'm going to be doing a voiceover of this with some music behind it one of these days when I get around to it. But without any further ado, let's bring in John and Bill and Carl, special guest, and we'll hope that Josh
I
remembers.
sent him a link. So
I do, so
Yeah.
if he doesn't have to go to bed because of the air
Oh,
conditioning
yeah.
coming in, then that'll be fine.
his air conditioner's been on the fritz for like a week. So
Yeah.
he has our sympathies.
And in Alabama, that is some serious business, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Summertime in Alabama, if you don't have an air conditioner, you suffering. So
I know from talking to him on Zillow just a whole lot that they went from a very, very rainy last month now to the August heat. So.
Oh, yeah, Ace, it was a success. There wasn't no maybe about it. We actually pulled it off.
We made it for 2 hours and nobody get kicked off Facebook. So
Really?
That we know of.
We
Joe didn't come in to spank us.
Well, any minute now. Well, we weren't launching a rocket, so wait a minute, I could do that. I've got plenty in the backyard. Well, no, scratch that. Just forget it. Forget it. I don't think I have clearance, but we'll just kind of pass that on to sometime later on when I've got a chance to get the mortars out for the fireworks and whatnot, and we'll just have a grand old show then. But not as now that was dramatic.
Somebody catch a mouse?
No, that weren't no mouse.
That weren't no mouse.
Oh no!
That was a beer opening, and I'd say Corona.
No.
Nope. Pabst Blue Ribbon.
No.
No. It was Billy beer.
Natural.
Natural.
No wonder I didn't recognize it. Okay.
A man after my own brand. Yeah, Ace, it was a good time, and thank you for showing back up here after you made some valuable comments there in Stupid O'Clock, and we're always glad to have you. Now, gentlemen, where do we go from here? Which is not to be confused with the song by, was it Styx?
Oh.
No, it was
Alan Parsons' project. Yeah.
Yep. Good.
Now that all the children have grown up or gone away or something like that.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? Yeah. Bill and I are on the same wavelength lots of times, which is frightening enough for Bill, but I think like him, my God.
I'm thinking you were talking about launching a rocket. Maybe a fall project to do would be to build our own rocket and see how far we can set it up.
Well, we could set it up just fine. It's
setting it off.
It's setting it off. It's the thing.
Actually, we were all wrong. It was Chicago that did that song.
Oh.
Which one?
Where do we go from here?
Oh no, you're thinking they did have a song called "Where Do We Go From Here,"
Oh,
but
yeah, okay,
that's
you're
not
right.
the one that Dan is
Darn it.
referring to.
Okay, hang on a minute. Darn it.
Nope, the one by
Where
Alan
do we
Parsons.
go from here? I got it. Where do we go from here? Wait a minute, type this in.
"Games People Play" was the name of the song by Alan Parsons Project.
Games People Play.
Your computer cannot beat this mind on music.
Wow. You guys are good.
I just had to think of
Yep.
it for just a second. I had the album. It was
What year
what?
ago?
Oh God! Don't ask me that. And get out of my yard. Wasn't it luck of the draw?
Yeah, luck of the draw. Yep.
Yeah. And but and was that the same album that Time was also on, or was that a different
Time
album?
was its own album.
That was on that album?
No, Time was its own album.
Oh, its own album. Okay, because
Yeah,
I know
but
it came out like 80, 81.
Yeah, Too Much Time on My Hands is very similar, but
Yeah.
Bill and I get in this groove every once in a while, and it's like he's a brother that I never knew I had. So,
Yeah, so it's always near, Dan. It's always near. That's
wrong.
my avatar.
Time was on the album "The Turn of a Friendly Card."
Oh yeah, there you go. Turn a friendly card.
Yeah,
And then you see, "Games People Play" was also on "Turn of a Friendly Card."
Okay, it was on the same album. Yeah.
yeah.
And what year did that say that was? 79, 80?
81.
81. Okay.
Oh wait, 1980 song. I'm sorry, 1980, and it peaked on the charts in 1981.
Okay. Well, I remember we went to Osage Beach, Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri that summer. I was able to pull up WLS out of Chicago all the way down there in Osage Beach.
Wow.
And they were constantly playing Time, which is the saddest song, you know, if you listen to it. But they were that was on their playlist every day. Constantly.
Weirdly enough, down here in Georgia, in the middle of the night on the weekends, I was able to pull WLS and WOR out of the air on a little AM transistor radio smaller than a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And I had rigged that thing up to where I had the little mono headphone, earpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stripped the wires loose, fed it through the tone arm of a record player, so I could get it in glorious two-channel mono.
Oh yeah, make your own stereo.
At about 50 watts next to my bed, and I would listen to the King Biscuit Flower Hour.
Oh yeah.
And and other stuff all over. I even got to hear old radio plays and things like that for a while on this little bitty radio. And the only reason I was able to do that, it had where you could plug in two little AA or AAA batteries in the back of it. I had it set up with a couple of batteries that were just about worn out, and a couple of wires spliced in there, going to a 6-volt cell.
I bought this in a Haji shop in Iraq, and it's a cheap copy of the Sony version of this.
Yeah. I shall return.
And it's an MP3 player and recorder.
Okay.
So you can record on thing. But it also has AM/FM radio on it. Give you an idea of how small this thing is. You plug the headphones in it, and that's the antenna.
Right. And the
Yeah.
speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, it is also
USB. Yeah.
USB, but
Yeah.
that's also how you can load songs onto it.
Okay. And does that charge it too, or do you have to put batteries in there?
You have to put batteries in it. It runs
Okay.
off of one AAA battery.
That's
Oh,
handy.
wow.
That's handy.
Mhm.
Let me tell you that, and the fact that it's an AM/FM radio, like in a storm or something like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and you can record. You can record your own voice in MP3. And for a while, I was recording cassette tapes onto this,
Okay.
and it would convert them to MP3, and then
Yeah.
loading it onto the computer.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nice spy device.
Yeah.
Just a little. Yeah. It's strangely enough, it has the plug for the earphones, but it also has a microphone plug in it.
Yeah.
So you could actually plug a decent like spy mic into it if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Chinese made.
Which brand is that? Is it a Sony or?
This is GPX.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Gen X. My bad.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gen X. Okay.
Okay.
There was a GPX brand I remember in the 80s and 90s that was kind of more of the generic version of some of the other nicer
Yeah.
ones. But
They actually
Well,
make
I
digital
had a-
radios and clocks.
I had a 1978 General Electric AM/FM clock radio that I could tune it in to WSM out of Nashville all week long during the day, and that would not pick up nothing. It would, everything else would bleed over on that. But
Yeah.
miraculously, every weekend evening, and of course, in particularly on the Saturday evening, around 7, 8 o'clock, it would start coming in just in time for the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, very nice.
And I could listen to the Grand Ole Opry every Saturday night. Couldn't listen to anything else on WSM through the whole week from that, but just, just the way the skip hit it and all that, it was just perfect.
Well, that's when they pump that wattage up a little bit. On the
Yeah.
Grand
Yeah,
Opry.
Yeah, they could.
With
One
of
my
my
little
some
AM
of that
radio,
stuff-
I could tell when they had. I couldn't tell whether they had just rotated the antenna or just cranked the watts up. But
Mhm.
all of a sudden, this little whisper became a roar, and I was able to hear Rick Wakeman do "Journey to the Center of the Earth" and "Knights of King Arthur" live in one concert. I was able to hear. Let's see. Can't You See by
Marshall Tucker.
Marshall Tucker Band, yeah. And I had never heard of Marshall Tucker Band before, but I knew they had a flute player. So when the intro started, I go, "Oh, this has got to be Marshall Tucker," and sure enough, it was. And it's one of those things that did not get played on the local radio stations at all. You might have been able to hear it on 96 Rock out of Atlanta, but you'd had to be real lucky because they had their scheduled stuff they had to promote.
Sure.
And Marshall Tucker was not one of the things they were scheduled to promote. It'd be more like Leonard Skinner and what was the one from Florida that my old girlfriend used to dance in front of?
Allman Brothers.
No, they're not from Florida. Bugger, they did a lot of radio hits in the 70s, at least half a dozen or so. But Molly Hatchet, there you go.
Oh, Molly Hatchet, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dated a girl that she was from Florida, and when she was a young teenager, she would be up on stage dancing in front of the band unofficially. Not like Stacia from Hawkwind. I mean, she got it made official. She's like a member of the band, but my girlfriend just did it because it was fun, and they let her get away with it because she was cute. So, haven't heard from that woman in decades. Hope she's still doing all right.
She might be still dancing in front of the Molly Hatchet stage. Have you checked?
I doubt it. I doubt it seriously. She got much more serious once she got to be in her late 20s. So
good old Frazetta.
Yeah, that's one of the. I couldn't tell you much about their music except I used to hear it on the radio all the time. But the cover art,
Well, if you look at that cover art, you go, what kind of Southern rock band would play something that would fit with that? Molly Hatchet's about the one.
Was it Flirting
That
with
lead
Disaster,
singer,
wasn't it?
Flirting with, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Gator Country, and he gets in there right in the middle of the song. He goes, "It ain't for everybody," and that was a remark to certain people about Southern rock. And that, because there was, you remember the battle between Leonard Skinner and Neil Young, when Neil Young wrote Southern Man, and then Leonard Skinner replied with Sweet Home Alabama. And so Molly Hatchet had to throw
20
in their
or
2
30
cents
years
worth.
later, yeah.
Yeah. And
we don't like that Neil Young down here. I mean,
Y'all should learn to, because he ain't dumb.
I
He's just
know.
Canadian.
I was about to say it. That was all about making money, selling records.
I'll tell you, that lead singer for Molly Hatchet could whistle like nobody else. I used to work at a plastics factory, and on a 7-day swing shift. And when we worked on third shift, I brought in my Pioneer stereo with my Technique speakers. They were huge. And I would bring in all my cassette tapes and stuff, and I'd bring Molly Hatchet, greatest hits. And we had 3 brothers that worked on the same shift as I. And, the whole factory was just loud from the plastic extruders and everything. You had to wear earplugs or headsets. But if one of the brothers needed help on their line from one of the other brothers, they would do a loud whistle, and the brothers would come running, over to help the brother. So I'm there playing Molly Hatchet, Flirting with Disaster, and just standing there watching all 3 of the brothers. And then all of a sudden you hear that lead singer from Molly Hatchet throw out that whistle. And then you see 3 heads popping up. Who needs help? Who needs help? And then they turn around and look at me, and I'm just laughing my butt off and all that. And they're shaking their fists at me.
Oh, that's like the first time that I had ever had the cassette for Aerosmith Rocks playing in my car, and I'm cruising up the highway heading for Atlanta, fixing to go watch a Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it changes side, and the song comes on with the police siren at the beginning, and I'm going, ah! Because I thought it was live. I'd never heard the album before. This is the first time I played the cassette.
Okay.
It scared the crap out of me. And then I learned to scare the crap out of passengers in my car.
Kind of like the beginning of REO Speedwagon's Riding the Storm Out, where they have the siren going off.
Yep. Well, that was an air raid sort of siren rather than a police siren, but same principle.
Yeah.
You think you got a tornado instead of a cop, and you're wondering which one is worse. Let's see. It was Kansas and I believe it was a band from Florida, but I can't remember their name now. Both of them did versions of Ghost Riders. Ghost
Outlaws.
Riders in the Sky, Outlaws, and Kansas. And when it came on the radio, they did such a similar version. You couldn't tell which one was which.
Hmm.
It was pretty wild. Now, I've got to admit, because of one of the books that I've written that has yet to be published, I developed a fascination with Ghost Riders in the Sky, and I found a download with, let's say, 90% of every version of that song that has ever been done, including Burl Lives. And it's like, I could put that on while I was trying to write, and my wife would come up and go, "Would you please put your headphones on? I can't stand to hear that more than once in a row."
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. Let me tell you. Yeah, like you said, this ain't for everybody. One day I've got to go back and re-edit that damn book so I can get it published, and I've got to separate the prequel from the part that's finished, because the prequel ain't finished yet, but the other part is, and that'd be all I got to do is re-edit and chop out all the stuff referring to the prequel is part of the same book, and just go, okay, two different, cut, chop, here.
And the original Ghost Riders in the Sky, since you're talking about that, was a country song, but not, of course, rock, but it was Blonde Monroe was the first one to do it in 1949.
Yep.
But the Outlaws version from the 70s was the most popular, and I think it was highest on Billboard charts.
Oh.
Yep. And like I said, when Kansas did the same thing, it was so close you could not tell the two apart unless you really, really were into both bands and could tell which voice was which. But they must have tried to get it to be as similar as possible. Johnny Cash did a version. Like I said,
1979.
Yep. There were, let's see, Spiderbait did a version for the Ghost Rider movie, the first one. I did not like that quite as well because it was a mostly electronicized voice. I prefer to actually, it's the same kind of thing where people are doing what is it? Auto-tune. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. I don't really like auto-tune except for one or two early examples. But
it's kind of like, you invent something else new in music, okay? And you're using it as a device to spice up one or two songs. And then everybody says, "Oh, hey, that's great. Let's all jump on that bandwagon."
And that's all you hear for 6 months.
Yeah. Or a year or two. Yeah. I don't like auto-tune either. I mean, if you don't have a good voice and you can't sing, then you should probably not become a singer. You shouldn't depend on auto-tune to do it for you.
Now, there was a Japanese-made singing program. Basically, you'd type in the text and you'd pick out a voice, and it would auto-tune to the notes you typed in for the vocals, and the computer would do all of it, and it sounded fairly decent. I mean, it didn't sound human, but then again, it wasn't meant to sound strictly human. It was meant to sound like an AI. And I thought, well, I can't sing much of anything. There are a few groups that are in my range, and I have to be really drunk to even attempt to sing. And thank God that y'all will never see me that drunk, no matter if I'm crawling on the floor trying to get back to my room. I'm still not drunk enough to sing, let me tell you. But my wife will convince me every once in a while to pull up You never even called me by my name.
Ah.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And we can do a passable version of that together, but you got to understand it's like listening to the karaoke from someplace that only ever had AM. That's where I sound
David
like
Allen Coe. You never even call me by my name.
Yep.
Which is one of the greatest country music songs ever written.
Oh, it is the
Because
greatest country
he
music.
credits a friend of his, Steve Goodman.
Steve
for writing
Goodman,
the song.
yes.
And says it was a perfect country song. And somebody wrote back, it was not a perfect country song because it doesn't say anything at all about mama, trains, trucks, prison, or getting drunk. So they sat down and they wrote the final verse of the song.
Which included all of those elements.
In one line.
Yeah. Well, one verse. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And we will do that every once in a while. And there are a few other things that we will know. She can only get me to dance when she's wanting to listen to certain specific bands that have these romantic things going on. Dancing in the Moonlight is one of them. But then there are let's not go into a huge list. There's a few things that she can get me to get up and dance with her. I don't dance, I don't sing, and I just barely can play a musical instrument, but I play the radio real well. I can turn the volume up and I can turn the volume down, and that's all that's required. I can change the station if I need to.
Dan, I always use playing guitar as the excuse not to dance. It's like how am I going to dance with this dang guitar on me? But Josh just messaged me and said that he started having some stomach issues. Ooh. And so he was going to back out for the evening, and of course he's got to get up early tomorrow anyway. But he said that tell everybody he really appreciated being on the show tonight, and he apologized for having to leave early. So anyway,
that's quite all right. We understand completely.
Yep. Hope he gets feeling better.
And Ace, yes, I remember that one quite well.
Yeah.
And and Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, both versions. Yeah.
Now you mentioned David Allen Cole there, John. I was privy to hearing some of his underground music, which of course cannot be mentioned on this broadcast, I wouldn't even dare utter it in the green room. Even that's how
there's some of it that I wouldn't even say in the green room. Yeah, that album,
the White Album, wasn't it? The White Album.
No,
yep.
it basically,
I know what you mean, John. I know what you mean.
David Allen Coe, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carl. Oh, you're gonna regret that.
Carl's gonna have show and tell in the green room tomorrow night.
We'll actually have a show and tell. I think maybe in the Drunken Rant before the green room. Oh. I'm gonna invite Donna to do a show and tell. Oh. We'll see what she brings.
Oh.
Who knows?
I'm
almost afraid.
Oh heavens!
It was Bill's suggestion, so.
Yes, but I know Donna.
Vaguely. Yeah, who knows what she might bring?
I mean, there are no limits. If she decides to do something, she's going to do it, and damn the torpedoes.
Yeah, I was going to say when you were talking about your wife making you sing or dance, wives have a way of making us do these things.
Yep. Yeah, and for some strange reason, they actually enjoyed the results.
I know. I keep saying that if something happens to her, universe forbid that, but if something did happen to her, I'm not getting married again. I'm going to rent. I'm not gonna.
You're going first, Carl. She's done already.
Probably.
She's got that worked out already.
Most married men do. or just wish they had.
Well,
yeah.
These things, they happen. So, sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you.
Yep.
For sure. Hey, you guys were talking about your radios earlier. Yeah, that probably was, they were upping the power for the night because the FCC allows them to do that. Once certain stations go off the air, certain others are able to boost their things. But there's also a bounce from the ionosphere.
Yeah.
And
once the air clears out at night, it gets cooler and thicker. You get this weird.
Yeah.
It bounces.
And during the day, it rides lower, close to the horizon.
During the day, it bounces like this, but at night, it angles out a bit more, and you can get a lot more bounce off of it because there's
a lot more skip. Yeah.
You can get double bounces sometimes at night. And we've had people here in the United States get shortwave stations, as far away from us as Australia. And I used to pick up some real good powerhouses down in Ecuador. They used to belt out.
When I first got to Berlin, one of my first purchases, one of my first real Army paychecks, I went to the PX and I bought a JVC boombox. Okay. It had dual cassette players and the high-speed dubbing where you could put one and record it to the other, and it would do it super fast. And but the one thing that was really cool about it is I got to looking at it. It had AM, FM, and multi-wave and shortwave on the radio receivers. And I was looking at it, and of course, being in the military, we had a lot of radios, and I was looking at it. So I started asking one of the radio guys about it. He says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, it's got this thing where you can like plug an antenna into the back of it. It looks like for a TV antenna." And you just add it in the back. So, yeah, it's just a matter of fact, some of the rooms around here have got the old TV antenna hookups for stuff like that. Because in Europe, they actually use part of the shortwave band for commercial radio.
Exactly. The BBC is like that. A lot of them. Yeah.
Right, and a lot of the really powerful radio stations, like there's that one I can never remember, funk term, or it's Radio Berlin basically, and it was this big powerful radio transmitter, and it transmits into the multi-wave frequencies. But it was kind of funny, if you're listening to FM in Europe, they have bumpers at the beginning and the end of the FM frequency.
Okay.
So you start going down the FM frequency and you get near the bottom, you start hearing this warble. That lets you know you've hit the end of the FM frequencies. And then you go to the other direction, and when you hit the other end of the FM frequencies, you start hearing that. And that they don't do it here in the United States, but it was what the heck is that? Somebody had to explain it to me. But it's kind of weird. You'd go to the multi-wave stations, you pick up BBC,
Radio Free Europe.
Radio Free Europe. There's that one out of France that I can't remember the name of. And then Sky Network, I believe, had one at the time. But I believe they sold theirs right about the time they bought into cable.
Yeah. And sadly, a lot of those are gone now, the biggies. You don't get quite as many, on shortwave now. You get a lot of wacky, crazy folks and religious broadcasters.
Hey, we should start broadcasting on shortwave.
Yeah.
There you go.
Carl, can you make us a dipole antenna so that we could do that?
We'll have to get a license, but we could do it.
Well, yeah.
We have the dark pope. We could claim religion.
Yeah.
I found in an Army surplus store one time, I found an old Prick 125, and it's an add-on antenna for the Prick 125.
Okay.
And it's on a fly fishing reel.
Oh, yes.
And it's basically 100 feet of copper wire on a fly fishing reel. And if you know how to do it, you basically take your antenna off, you put it up underneath it, you screw the antenna back on, and you run this thing up a hill or up a tree or down a valley, whichever way. And if you move it around just right, this thing will broadcast like you wouldn't believe. But it's FM, it's military band FM.
Sure.
But I kept that thing for a while just because there were places in Iraq where that came in handy.
I just read an article where CB radio is now adding an FM modulation to some of the stuff that they're able to do on CB to cut down on the amount of crosstalk and basically improve the signal strength for very, very close, like for truckers.
Well, all the little handheld radios you get, those are all FM.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're real close. Yeah, those.
Yeah.
And that's what they're adding to the CB radios. So that I could talk to you on that thing off my CB radio if I were a trucker or whatever, had one CB radios inside. But
these little things have like about a 2-mile range at most.
Exactly. You use the AM, the long range version, to talk to whatever it is. And then when you get close, like the truck next to you or whatever, you flip over to that FM band.
Yeah.
31, whatever. And, hey.
And it's much, much clearer, much less noise, much less static.
Yes, it is. Much so. Yeah.
And much less jackasses.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, if you've ever
I would say now, if you ever listen to CB, there's a glorious surplusage of assholes out there.
But these are just closer.
18 wheels and an asshole.
Looking for a seat cover.
I used to have a Robin 520D 40-channel base station with sideband on it. The guy put he kind of tweaked out the upper and lower sidebands on there, and he took the 50-watt radio, tweaked that up about another 25 watts. Then we put a Heathkit Warrior kilowatt linear that used to be my dad's, that he used to use on his Drake TR7 ham radio, old tube one that he bought brand new in 1965, and handed it down to me, which wasn't the wisest thing to do, knowing that I was going to use it on CB radio and with a half-wave antenna, and I didn't even have any beams or anything, I just, I had a 30-foot push-up pole tower, telescoping tower with a half-wave antenna on there and that, but I could wreak some havoc on a Saturday night with that.
You were serious.
Let's put it this way. I had to, with my dad's assistants, go out and get some filters to hand out to the neighbors.
Yeah.
For about a 2-block radius. What I'm sure we did more damage than a 2-block radius. But I mean, I would knock, if they were watching Saturday Night Live on there and I keyed up, that was it. Yeah, I mean, it took the audio, the video, everything out. And so we had to keep the neighbors happy, with that. But
now everybody's on cable now, so they don't care.
Yeah. I remember the first CB radio I had in my old Oldsmobile. I didn't have anything wired to it. There wasn't anything other than straight store-bought 23-channel CB. And I got to work one morning, and I had it on instead of having the FM on, and I could hear the truck drivers in the factory parking lot talking to each other. And I picked up the microphone, keyed it up, said hello. And I was told it overrode the PA system inside the factory. They cannot hear anything but my voice. And I'm going, well, thank God I sound like somebody dramatic. Charlton Heston receiving the tablets from the flaming cloud on high. But it's like, oh, I'd like to never live that down because all I did was say hello, you know. But, and then there was one day, same radio, same rig, same car. My little brother, and this is the reason I started locking my car up when I went home. My little brother got in the car, flipped on the CB, and started searching around. And all of a sudden, because of the skip, because of some weird atmospheric thing, he was talking to a Radio Shack store in New York City from just outside of Athens, Georgia. Not only could he hear them, but they could hear him.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going, this thing ain't got that much power. It's just a 12-volt battery.
Yeah, they probably only came out about 5 to 10 watts, probably. Most CB radios were around, without any amplifiers.
Yeah, and I didn't have anything like that.
You get the skip, and you can get all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he talked to him for about 2.5 hours. I'm going, oh, okay, Tim. I've got to go to work in the morning. Don't kill my battery.
Yeah.
Just say goodnight and don't make me have to charge the car before I had to go to work in the morning. Alarm clock goes off at 6. I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah, last night I was listening to some ham radio operators, and the ones that were down in Georgia sounded like they were sitting, right in the next room. And
we have had some heavy atmospherics here lately.
Yeah, and the solar storm's been coming through, and that.
Well, it's the weather's been kind of weird, so everything's kind of low and holding everything down. So you might have gotten some really good skip of that.
Oh, yeah, I think I picked up a guy in Idaho from Illinois, which is phenomenal. I could barely hear him, but he was coming in, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, I've not done that before." I mean, those ham radios don't have a lot of power, and if they don't have amplifiers, they may not be going over 25 watts, which is not a lot of power, for a ham radio.
I bought a Garmin Rhino, Rhino 120.
Yeah.
And it does GPS. It's got all the neat GPS features to it. It does FM radio like Dan had.
Mm-hmm.
And you change but it also does shortwave. But I think it's only 1 watt or something like that. It's got like it's 2 mile FM radius, but you can go to 6 miles on shortwave.
Yeah.
Or technically, if you flip on the shortwave, you're supposed to have a license.
Yeah, that's what they call a GPRS. There's all kinds of different radio frequencies they go on, and like the one Dan has is what they call an FRS, a family radio system.
Right.
And I don't remember what GPRS stands for, but it's a little more powerful, and you do have to supposedly have a license for that, but a lot of people don't.
But guess what? We were in Iraq.
Yeah. So, the FCC doesn't, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the FCC.
Then, of course, they came out with all the jammers for jamming the IEDs, and none of our radios would work. So,
yeah.
Now, one thing, when I first got my my CB radio for the car, you still had to have a ham radio license to be able to legally operate a CB radio. So I've actually got a ham license.
Ooh.
Even though I don't have a ham radio, I've only ever had CBs.
Do you have green eggs?
No.
Now,
Persephone.
Later they said you didn't need a ham license, but you did need a CB license. So they changed
That's what I had.
Yeah, They changed it down a little bit. after a while because, all those truckers were not doing what they needed to do.
Yeah,
And a lot of people,
after C.W. McCall came out with his hit song,
yeah,
it was wide open, no license required.
yeah.
You just go to Kmart and buy one, and you're good to go. Just turn it on and talk to your heart's consent.
Well, I think you were still supposed to fill out a little form to let the FCC know who you were and send it in, and that was your license. That was it.
Yeah, nobody ever did that. So.
Yeah, because I think you had call letters too in those.
KGJG 7660.
Mine was KAVF 5171.
I still remember it from 1973, 74, something like that.
Wow, you guys are
before
good.
I even graduated high school.
Yep.
Yeah. We had one too, and I used it because my dad had a license. He, like you said, bought it at Kmart, sent in the paperwork, and I don't remember the call sign though. But we used to use it.
Yeah, I don't know why I always remembered mine, but I used to sign off with it a lot too. And that now my dad's ham radio call sign was K9FKC.
Oh.
So it was not that far off from mine, and he always wanted me to be a ham radio operator. And at the time I couldn't get past the code.
Yeah.
And
you still had to do the Morse code, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and it was the mid 70s. So it was all about CB radio, and he knew me and my brother was hot and heavy into it. So he figured, well, if I can't get him into ham radio right now, let's get him into CB radio and do it the right way and not like some of these jag dorks that were out at the time. And so, and Dad had all the connections to all the people that built the radios, like the Robin 520D that I had, and
wow,
and a little 2-tube 50-watt linear amplifiers. That was my first amplifier, was a little 2-tube 50-watt that Bob Chestnut did. And John, I sent you or maybe he can't hear yet.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. In Messenger, I sent you a picture of my very first CB radio. It's a Sears Road Talker 40, and it looked like something straight out of Star Trek.
Oh, that looks familiar.
Yeah.
I can do this about
A Cobra.
Yep.
I think that's what we had. Yeah. You power that up.
My Radio Shack magnetic antenna. In
Yeah.
Exactly. You need that.
Little rubber duck.
No, it's one of the big one with the spring.
Oh, the tall.
I bet if you
Okay.
powered that up, it would probably still work.
Yep.
Yeah.
All you need is a couple of 9-volt batteries and you're fine. One of them has to be just about dead, but.
Well, you probably want to check the standing wave on it before you hooked it up to an antenna. That way, you want to keep it set that wave.
Actually, you could power that off a couple of 6-volt flashlight batteries. They wouldn't last long, but you could do it. And there are power inverters.
Yeah.
You had to go to Tashi Station and hang out with your worthless friends. Somebody got that reference.
We used to use those power inverters in Radio Shack when I worked there because we'd hook those up in the store. And, of course, we didn't have DC, so we'd convert the AC to DC through the inverter, and we would power that up, the CBs, and we would power up all the car stereos so people could go over and play with the car stereo. Of course, there was always some Yahoo over there turning up way too loud and blowing out the speakers. And like, really? I had to replace those already once this month.
Really, these are Radio Shack speakers, dude. They're not Sun beta bass amps, but
right.
who uses.
Do
You
you
know,
see Marshall anywhere here on the wall? No.
Yeah,
Then let's
really.
turn it up to 11.
John, put that picture back up again for a second. I want to point something out about that radio.
Now he tells me.
Was that a picture or was that?
That was my very first CB base station. It was a Sears brand. It was called a Sears Road Talker 40. And if you noticed on it, whenever he gets it back up, it's instead of having the knobs, it has slide controls on it. And now, and the microphone, the key button on the bottom there, you could actually click it all the way down and it would click and hold down, keyed up. But that was not an amplified mic. That wasn't like a D104 or anything like that. It was just the regular standard mic that came with that. But I mean, tell me that it doesn't look like something in the transporter room on the original Star Trek series.
Wow.
I mean, but it was a good radio. It was very much.
with all apologies to Carl, that looks like a realistic Radio Shack unit right there.
Yeah.
It looks like something I would have bought in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. I would have bought it because it had cool slides on it.
Oh yeah, they were great.
I've got a 6-channel realistic mixing board over here that 5 of the channels still work because the 6th one I plugged my bass guitar into and blew the damn thing up. But I had 2 of those 6-channel mixing boards, and I used them for the GarageBand stuff. So I had 6 microphones hanging from the ceiling, and they were scattered between the 2 6-channel mixing boards, and then I had 6 line ins from the different guitar amplifiers and speaker cabinets that everybody was using, and it was line in, so it wasn't amplified. I could actually adjust the frequency. The only way to mess one of those things up was to use it as an input for a bass guitar. When you do that, that one channel gets pretty much fried.
Mm-hmm.
But if you only ever use it for bass, it would still keep working for a bass guitar. But if you ever plugged anything else into it, it would sound like Static City.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't have the faintest idea. You could plug a 6-string guitar into it. It was fine. You plug a bass into it, and it would definitely mess everything up. Maybe because the range was so much lower. And you were still trying to get the same volume out of it to mix into the recorders that were going on. Like I said, I had 2 of those. I gave the one that I didn't destroy to my buddy that was teaching me how to play guitar, and he's up in Pennsylvania now. He may still have the darn thing. It may be covered in dust an inch deep, but he may still have it. And being realistic Radio Shack brand, it probably still works. It would probably still work after a nuclear apocalypse if you had somebody that was desperate to have a garage band.
Sure. Well, a lot of the stuff that Realistic and Radio Shack sold was actually made by other manufacturers, but they rebranded it. And Radio Shack had a lot of contracts with them that they could not sell that same product in the United States. So, like if Sony had something, but they only sold it in the East, but Radio Shack bought an interest of it in the U.S., they would rebrand it Realistic, but nobody else could sell it. So it was actually made by some of the biggies.
Yep.
Japan or Korea or wherever they were making them. And
it was Realistic, wasn't it? Another brand they used was Olympus.
Yeah, each thing had its own little name. Realistic was for stereos and for radio type products. Olympus was for anything that was like more camera type things, I think. What were some of the other brand names we had?
Now, one of the things that I read was there was stuff that Radio Shack had that was actually Marantz rebranded.
The speakers were, yeah. The big speakers, like home speakers from Marantz, definitely. But we were never allowed to say that, except we did, you know.
Well, you're talking about the completed speaker cabinets.
Yeah.
Now, I used to buy individual dismounted speakers. And I mean, 100 watt, 15 inch, 75 watt, 12 inch. Oh man, those things powered my garage band. Let me tell you. And there's nothing more frightening when you're doing a guitar solo and all of a sudden the speaker cabinet goes dead, and you got to make a trip to Radio Shack the next day and spend another $50 for a 12-inch speaker.
Yeah. We were the one I worked at the most was in the city of Champaign, and we were constantly, we would know when there was a concert going on in the assembly hall because a bunch of long-haired guys would run in there all of a sudden and say, we need all this mic stuff. We need all these. And it was a band that was playing that had just either forgotten microphone equipment or they had just blown out a mic. And they ran down to our store and bought it up before the concert would start.
We
had a lot of roadies in there. A lot of roadies.
One of the best microphones I ever used during the garage band days, I had it hanging from the ceiling so that it would get snare drum and cymbal crashes. I also had the bass drum mic'd inside.
Oh, yeah.
So I was ahead of my time back in the 70s, but it was a realistic omnidirectional, with the metal globe on the end of it. It was a damn good microphone. I've still got it.
I think they're made by Shure.
Could be because it was an excellent microphone, and all I had to do was loop the cable to the base of the microphone and electrical tape it there so it didn't get yanked by anything and didn't mess up the connection inside the actual microphone body. And it lasted. Well, I've still got it. It still works. I mean, we're talking 40 years later, it still works.
Yeah.
And it's cool and clean and crisp. I could be using it right now hanging from the ceiling, but, to pick up my voice, it just about have to be in camera range because the mixer is over here and it's not hooked up to the computer. But, Lord, I could do that because I've done it before.
I had to write down what kind those are. If you have to have it like in view, I think that's a dynamic mic. But if you have it like off, like my mic is off camera here, I think that's a condenser mic.
These were the only thing I remember. This one is omnidirectional, and I'm pretty sure it's a condenser.
Yeah, probably
because it didn't have to be right up on top of anything. It could be hanging. It could be hanging from the ceiling, and it wouldn't show up on camera.
I had a buddy of mine, the band I used to be in, he used to have a Shure Super 55 Deluxe microphone that looked like the old 50s style that you would see Elvis hanging on to and while he was gyrating. And every time it came up for me to practice a song that I sang, if I got within 6 inches of that microphone, it was like, the gods from Olympus is just sending down lightning. And I mean, that sucker would bite me every time. And I said, what do you got this? You got it trailing through a bucket of water or what's going on with this, I can't stand, and we're not going to use this. Let's get a microphone that's from a little bit later of the 20th century and not this dinosaur, No, that's the best microphone because you sound the best through that one. And not one of the newer ones that we had or whatever, but man, every time. And
you sound much better when you're getting electrocuted, Bill.
Oh yeah, it's
love that sound.
Higher octaves and yeah.
You've seen Phantom of the Paradise. You know how this shit works.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably a short in the case or something in there.
We looked, and I, the lead guitarist in our band, he took that thing apart every which way and had it out and re-put it back together and thought, okay, everything looks insulated, everything is no shorts, nothing like that, get it together, get it hooked up, crank up the PA system and all that and get up there. And I mean, I get within 2 feet of it and the hair on my arm is standing straight up. And I got microphone shy real quick with that one.
It's just because you got this magnetic personality, Bill.
Well, it was electric, that was for certain.
Once a microphone goes bad, it's hard to fix those.
Mm-hmm.
Really. You fix just about everything else, but a microphone.
I had one. There was a fellow I knew that wanted me to record him playing his guitar, and the microphone I had was crapping out. It was one of those. It came with a cassette recorder, one of those little bitty rectangular things. Had the 2 prongs, had an on-off switch and the microphone switch, and I go, okay, I know how to fix this. So I had some parts laying around. I cut the cable, isolated the on-off switch and taped it up, and then had the stereo plug to go into the microphone jack. And there was all kinds of crap in the plastic handset for the microphone. So I took it all apart. I just had the little bitty disc of the microphone itself, just bare, sitting there. And we took a piece of double stick tape and taped it to his acoustic guitar. It wasn't even in the sound hole. It was right next to the strings where he wouldn't hit it with his fingers, but it was right next to the strings. And I plugged it in. We checked the levels and it sounded okay. I go, okay, let's do this. I hit record and it's still on this little cassette deck where you had to push 2 buttons to get to record. And it was one of the most fantastic things ever. He just cut loose on this acoustic guitar. I still got the cassette somewhere. I know, as long as it still works. It may be rotted beyond belief, but at the time it was just amazing. And he just cut loose and played one of his original pieces, and then we did 2 levels of overdub where he would do rhythm and another more harder piece on top of just the basic acoustic piece that he originally recorded.
Guys, I'm gonna call it a night. Y'all have a good one.
All right, John. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we bored you to tears.
He's gone. Oops. Hey, Ace Bonnie asked if that mic was humming with electricity.
Oh, Bill's? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I'll bet.
I don't doubt. Dan, remember the old crate? What were they? The CR1 Premier guitar amplifiers, and this is when crate amps actually on the outside of the amps were made to look like, well, they were made out of a wooden crate material, and then they had the metal handles on the top that were spring loaded, which those things were knuckle busters big time. I mean, they would break your fingers. And little 50-watt amp, but it weighed about 200 pounds. The worst thing in the world.
It weighed about 2 pounds. I've got one. I've got one for bass. I've got one for my 6-string. I mean,
what was the bass? The bass one, the guitar amplifier was the CR one. Was the bass a 1B or 12B or something?
But it had reverb in it too. So
right, yeah.
The bass didn't have the reverb.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
And they were just called practice amps.
Yeah, studio amps, because you didn't want to take them out of the studio. They were too darn heavy.
Well, the ones I had, they're not heavy at all. I mean, you could probably find a table lamp that was heavier. I mean, these things are like at the most 15 pounds, 10 pounds.
Oh, not the one I had.
Oh, and no, I'm talking about the 50-watt one for the 6-string. And God help you if you plug the wrong guitar in the wrong one, because you'd ruin shit. What is it about bass guitars that ruins shit?
I'll bet the ohms are different. You know?
Yeah.
I'll bet either it's coming in mono or something, and it's probably an 8 ohm versus a 16 ohm or 12 ohm. I don't remember them all now, but there used to be a thing
back in the day. It would have been 4 and 8.
4 and 8, yeah, okay.
The difference between a home stereo and a car stereo.
So, get this in to where I can. I don't know if you can see it but anyway.
Yeah.
Daggone it. There we go.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Anyway.
I bet it would depend on what kind of wood they were made out of.
Yeah, I mean, heavy duty, and there we go. And there at the top, there's that metal, that handle.
Bracket,
spring located sucker. And
all the weight was in the magnet for the speaker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those things could be heavy or they could be light for some reason and still kick ass. I don't know what the difference was.
I know that some people had some early on that I think they were made from the speakers from old organs. And those things were super heavy. I mean, I don't know where Wurlitzer and those guys got those speakers, but they were like huge and they were heavy as all get out. That magnet itself weighed 5-10 pounds, I'm sure.
Yep. One of my friends that was big into the live performance scene back in the day, and he actually turned into being one of the most in demand studio mixing board masters ever. And he just lives like 7 or 8 miles away from me. He had gone to this club and they wanted something special. So he built them a custom version of what was called a Leslie speaker tower. Yep. So basically what they did, they went out and bought a pair of BSR mechanical drive, gear drive turntables, and they put a set of paddles on it that would rotate at whatever speed the turntable were set on, and the speakers would feed through that. So you get this flutter effect.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be so dead simple that he was able to build a pair of these things. The entire tower was about 8 foot tall, and only the 15-foot bass amp or bass speaker in the 15-inch bass amp in the bottom fed through the actual rotating filter, let's call it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it went in front of the speaker.
So it would make things flutter. But the others had acoustic horns built in that would angle everything down to where it would also go through there. as well as come straight out unmodulated through the upper sections. So it's incredible. He drew the stuff out, and I've been able to build my own speaker cabinets for decades now that has a secret acoustic horn thing built in.
Okay.
And basically it's just, you got to make sure that the gap in front of the speaker is a certain distance, a certain width, and then when it gets down to the front, you got to make sure there's a specific angle, and then at the bottom you've got this wedge-shaped piece that comes out with all the modulation and everything in it. But you can build it in stages so that for your bass and your mid range and your tweeter can all go through in the same damn thing, but they've all got their own basic little acoustic horn. And it's hard to build because you've got to have the measurements correct. But then again, once you realize exactly what you're doing, it's real easy to go from 2 inches to 4 inches to 8 inches. And then you've got this fantastic sounding thing that should cost $1 million, but it only costs you about $100 worth of lumber.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because if you bought that from someone else, that would cost a lot more.
Oh yeah, the commercial version of the Leslie Towers were just outrageous. I mean, if you paid less than $2,000 for a matched pair, I would be really surprised in the 70s, because you can imagine what they'd be like now. But this is a couple of $100 worth of plywood and some redneck engineering.
Yeah.
And
back when I played keyboards, we got an organ. My father said he gave up buying a car that year because this organ was that expensive, but it had the Leslie speakers in it, and their claim to fame on this, it was a Yamaha organ. But they said it was real Leslie speakers, that actually the speakers rotated inside this organ. And I believe it, because when you hit the speaker, the Leslie button, you could hear those things just wind up. And the richness of the tone sounded like those speakers were actually whipping around in there. It was something to behold.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't have that anymore. I've got a little keyboard over here that I don't even touch.
Oh, wow. Behind the curtain, I've got several keyboards. Well, I've got one keyboard, but in the closet, I've got a couple more. I used to have about 8 synthesizers and a Sun Beta bass amp, 300 watt. Had a 100 watt speaker in it, and I built a cabinet that had 2 Radio Shack 100 watt speakers that would run off of that. And I had a crate 50 watt practice amp, and I had that where the line out fed another 100 watt 12-inch speaker. And oh God, I had an entire recording studio in my living room at one time. It was fun.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was fun. But the guys were. I had to call it quits. They couldn't stay sober long enough to do anything serious. And it was my house, and I was the one the cops were looking at, going, "You need to turn that shit down."
Yeah.
And I go, okay. So we figured out a way to use these realistic mixing boards and a set of headphones to do the same damn thing without any amplifiers.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It was totally silent, and the neighbors didn't complain, and it sounded real good when we recorded it. But the band broke up, and we never met again. So,
well, you know, that's how they do it in recording studios. I mean, they've got their headphones on and everything, and you know, it's much cleaner sound coming straight out of the instrument.
yeah, it is. And if you want to play with it, you just put stomp boxes in between.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be right back, gentlemen.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
All
Bill,
this talk.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said all this talk about microphones and bass amplifiers and all that is making me remember a lot of things I probably hadn't thought about in 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of my old job. I used to work at the Byerly Music Store in Champaign. And we would demonstrate organs. And I would get up there and start playing, and the guy that was across the mall from us would complain we were playing too loud. So we'd see the security guy coming down, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I got to ask you to turn the organ down again. I'm like, oh, no problem, we'll do it. And we'd wait until we could see he was going on the other way, and we'd crank it back up again. And we'd see that guy run over there and get on the phone. And like, oh, it's calling him again. So then I'd find something to clean in the back of the store. So by the time the security guy came back, I was cleaning something. Like, what? Oh, nobody's playing the organ. What?
That was the kid down the mall cranking something in the stereo shop or something, you know. We had, that crate amplifier that I got was from a place called Hey Music.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
On the old Zares Mall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember the only reason why I bought that, I liked the sound of it, loved the sound of it actually, and he had a sale on them,
mm-hmm.
And he says, well, he goes, I got the sale coming up, and all, you know, and he's doing everything he can to butter me up to this amplifier, and so I gave in and did it, but that amplifier was just a studio amp. It was incredibly heavy.
Yeah.
And to the point that when we used to have stuff set up in our basement for practices.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend that lived over on Alexander Street had brought his Pearl drum sets over.
Mm-hmm.
He had an 18-piece drum set, had everything down in there and that. And we could only practice during the daytime because my parents and most of the other neighbors around the neighborhood were gone during the day. They were at work or wherever, you know, kids were at school and stuff. So that was primo practice time for us.
Sure.
And that, but then we started having, our basement was like the basement from the Munsters, you know. Okay. It was pretty, not the best basement in the world.
Sure.
And we started having this continuous leak coming out up from the floor, concrete floor, but it had some cracks. Mm-hmm. Leaks were coming up and all that. And I said, guys, I just don't really think it's safe to have stuff down in here. And so we had to haul things out and haul over to the drummer's house, do all that. But I hauled that crate amplifier one time over there, and it never came back to my house again. I actually ended up selling it to somebody and told my friend, hey, sold my amplifier and he's going to be over later. Are you going to be home? And, you know, and then you can just give me the money later because I'm not hauling that SOB back home again, you know.
Right.
But there was another music store, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of it, but it was on East Main, corner store, and I think about Alexander Street, and it almost seems like it was near there, kind of almost catty corner from the old Kramer gas station on East Main. But when you walked into a record shop in the front. If you went straight back, you had soundproof booths where you could test out certain car stereos and that. But then if you walked, instead of going to the back, if you walked up a couple steps and went into this next room, you had the room that had all the guitars and amplifiers and drums and horns and everything else. I bought an Ibanez, had a copy of a Rickenbacker 4001 bass that I would later find out was to end up a somewhat valuable bootleg, because they did not get authorization from Rickenbacker to make their version of this bass. And it had the Rico sound, and the pickups and everything that was on there. I can't remember if it had humbucking pickups or what it was on there. And I had the Fireglow right-handed version, not left-handed, but and I love that bass guitar. I wished I still had it to this day. And I paid $350 for it in 1979.
It's a lot of money.
And yeah, it was.
In 79, that was a lot of money, yeah.
And later on, I would have an actual 4001 Rick bass, and I'll tell you the truth, hearing it and playing it, it had the same feel. It just, Ibanez really slipped one by him, you know. And that Rick bass that I would have bought 5 years later, I paid like 7 times the amount for that. Yeah. It was not cheap, wonderful thing. And now I got this old Hofner copy over in the corner that needs a lot of work, and probably maybe more work than what it's worth, and probably should be a wall hanger more than anything else. But someday I may take it.
I managed to buy back my original bass guitar from the guy I sold it to keep my my first wife from putting it in a pawn shop. And I have my first ever guitar, a 6-string, and both of them need to be totally rewired inside, because when you plug it in, it's nothing but static. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the pickups. There's nothing wrong with the strings or anything. It's just the wiring between the pickups and the line out jack that are totally fried. And I need to put those in the shop and get them fixed. But the first day I went to a pawn shop and bought this beautiful cream colored Fender Music Master bass. It's one of the short necks, so you didn't really have to stretch that far. And I've got an acoustic now, acoustic bass guitar that is a long neck, and you've got my fingers just will not stretch that far. But if I practiced, it could be. But I got this thing. The only amp I had was an old reel-to-reel tape recorder about the size of a coffee table. And all I did was plug the bass into it and use that as a speaker.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I paid like $10 for this pawn shop reel-to-reel tape recorder. that you could not use as a tape recorder, but the speaker was still just fine. So I bought the bass. I bought this this thing to use as an amp, and I sat there and played for like 8 hours trying to figure out how to make it do different things and play different bits and pieces of music. And it was time for me to go to bed because I had to get up and go to work the next morning. And I unplugged the bass. I carried it back to my bedroom, and I had a top bunk with a desk underneath it. And I climbed up into the bunk bed and curled up with on my pillow. And then I realized I was cuddling the bass guitar like it was a girlfriend.
Oh.
And I laughed my ass off and got down and stood that thing in the corner and go, tomorrow, sweetie. And got back to bed and got up the next morning and went to work and everything. I have never forgotten the fact that I actually did not realize I was climbing into bed with the guitar.
Yeah, you can love your instrument too much sometimes.
Well, this was the first day I'd ever had it, and I'm just like, I could not let go of it for some reason until I realized this is silly. I'm not. I mean, she's not gonna give me anything more. She's not even plugged up, so I ain't got her turned on right yet. So I need to put this down in the corner.
Yeah, you're only gonna wake up with string marks across your face.
Hey, the way I felt that day, I would have gone for it. I really would have. Just it didn't matter. It was like the little bit that I learned how to do in that one day was enough to show me that 4 strings was my limit. 6 was a little bit beyond me, but 4 strings I could really do something with. I fell in love, and I've never fallen out of love with that. But I've had a lot of different instruments since then. Just and that's not a metaphor for my love life because I have been around, but like I said, different keyboards. All kinds of different stuff to rig up a recording studio. At one time, we had 2 different drum kits pieced together into like a 18 to 22 piece drum kit.
Oh wow!
Yeah. It was 2 basses and tom-toms, tim-tams, and whatever else you want to call them. 2 different snares tuned to 2 different notes. About 6 different
like cymbals.
Yep. Had mics going into the basses. Had mics hanging over the cymbals. Had a mic duct tape to the stand for the snares, and had 3 different guitar amps in the room.
Did you have a cowbell?
Oh yeah. Gotta have a cowbell. Yeah, right next to the microphone. Yeah. Bang, bang, bang. Yep. So the first garage band was like 2 guitars, bass, drums, and my synthesizer collection. And it's like it was a Rick Wakeman starter kit, basically. All this stuff, and a drum machine for when the drummer wasn't there, so I could do stuff by myself. It was just so much fun. I could get up in the morning on my day off, nobody else there but me. Noodle something out on the 6-string, noodle something out on the bass, figure out a new drum pattern, and create 3 songs before lunchtime.
Yeah.
and have them recorded. And it was just fun. It was just fun. It was day after day after day after day. There's lots and lots of hours of stuff recorded on cassette and recorded on reel to reel, and there's the reel to reel even had an 8-track deck built into it.
Wow, I've never seen one of those.
Yep, it was a standard reel to reel tape recorder.
Yeah.
One of the big name brands, and it had an 8-track built into the side.
Wow.
And it was fun. I used to do. We had a charity thing, a haunted house for United Way, and I recorded all the sound effects from Halloween sort of stuff on the 8-track, and recorded some spooky keyboards and stuff like that, and all of it on there. So it would basically, even if I wasn't there and they had the haunted house running, all I had to do was turn on the 8-track, and it would play through all the routine for stuff for all the tour groups going through the haunted house.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It was even better when I actually was off from work and I was there, and they had me a little booth set up in the middle of the whole place, in between the walls, so nobody could see me, but I could hear all the cues from everybody walking around doing their tours and everything. And when they got into the little Phantom of the Opera room, I could turn the 8-track off and get on the synth and have like a really, really good multi-track pipe organ effect going, because they were all MIDI together. I had several things that would be all plugged up, so I could have high range on one, mid range on another, and low range on a third, and just be noodling around on the stuff. Even though I'm a lousy keyboard player, but it sounded great, especially in a haunted house. Because it didn't have to sound good; it just had to sound demented.
That kind of sounds like a drummer we used to have. He just sounded a little demented.
Well, on that note, I'm going to leave you guys. I've got to go check into the shortwave forum, the argument I started, and make notes for tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Well, we're a little over 90 minutes in, and I think I'm going to call it a night too.
Same here.
We're just going to call this one a short last man standing, and all three of us win. So
I think Chris Walker and Ace Bonnie are still in there today. So good job, guys.
Yeah. See you guys.
Chris, Ace, see you tomorrow night in the green room. Come on. We need you.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, everybody. And you have a good night.
Thanks for having us.
Bye, Candias.
Oh, well, I'm going to switch over to this thing. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a short broadcast tonight, but it was a fun one. The thing about Last Man Standing is you never know what we're going to say or what the topic's going to be. And the important thing is to just have fun. And fun is one of those pursuits that never fails to reward. Now, thank you very much. I'm going to roll the end credits, and then I'm going to take my silly self to bed. See y'all tomorrow in the green room, or see y'all Saturday night at Stupid O'Clock. Thank you very much. And may you all be blessed in every pursuit that you have. What? You're still here? Go home. Go to bed. Go to bed. Good night. And seriously, there's nothing to see here. It's just you and me. Show's over. Thanks for hanging around. Really, really, thank you. But good night. I mean, seriously, good night. Much love to you all. And thank you very much for being part of the show. And we'll see you next time. And next time is going to come real soon. Maybe not soon enough, but real soon. Thank you.